But from a fib channel perspective, we're really testing this 0.25 level and then bouncing off of it, and then we spraying out of it, right? And so just keep your eyes on this 0.25 level. And if you just come all the way across, that's really where we're at now. And this kind of gives me the opportunity to start zooming in and looking at what our current setups would look like, what I'm looking for to occur. So that same black line that I was mentioning, it's this line right over here. It's still moving diagonally. And let's move this over. So really, we're coming back and testing that area. The last time we tested it was last year, inside that February, March time frame. Then we went into an ABC correction, which printed us a cipher. And then we went into another impulse leg to the upside, completing wave 5. So that being said, right, it would only make sense for us to go into an ABC correction. From a wave count perspective, if you look at this blue wave count, I'll zoom out and then I'll go right back in. Right, that was that first impulse up. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. So we're in a wave right now. It just completed in this area. And if I zoom in from this bear market low, where we had our first impulse up, and then we go into some corrections, this also just completed its 5th wave. So I have 2 different wave counts from 2 different eras, if you will, in the sense of BTC, that are both completing at a 5th wave. So again, an ABC correction makes sense. The bigger question would be is like, do we have an impulse up to the upside? And so what I'm looking for is, if I go to the upside, I want to see these green channels, fib levels for the fib channel, this green line, which is 0.5, and this red one is 618. I'm measuring resistance on this fib channel, so this is why the 618 is above the 0.5. But if you take note, as far as what occurs when we get to that 0.5 and 618, yes, we do have some type of resistance, and then maybe potentially go higher. Well, I'm just giving you the mathematics behind it, that it would make sense for us to get into these levels. That could be down the road over here. That could be a straight shot up. As a matter of fact, I believe I did add back in a fib zone to give me a little bit better perspective as far as when those bigger swings are going to be coming, and it's right over here. Right, so if I'm looking at inside of these pockets, these are like swings start to occur. So now inside of March 2026, so these would be a super cycle. There needs to be new measurements, things of that nature. So I don't want to get too carried away, because I don't know if price is going to go to these levels. This is going to be price discovery, so there's a lot of unknown and question marks that are behind that. I'm just giving you a bullish narrative saying, if we do find ourselves inside of an ABC correction, and then we get a strong impulse move, a strong leg to the upside, then we have a new wave count coming, and the upside levels could look something like this. They could be in the 370, 370s, 280 levels higher. This is going way in the distance. So currently short right now. You guys saw me post inside my corner that I'm short. I'm shorting from the 107 area, and even building from like 105. I have some targets that are in that area. I believe this would be the ABC correction that we saw, very similar over here when we did tap into that 0.25 level. And then we go into, again, either an impulse up to the upside, or we just continue to sink down low. This trend line becomes liquidity. Everyone that's deciding to long this area, you see a big strike down to the downside. Right? What are some of those targets or ideas that would make that come to fruition? And this is where I start looking at this dashed line that I was talking about before. This dashed line is a rising wedge, which is a reversal pattern. It's going to be a bearish reversal pattern. And so the measured move is going to be from the peak high to the peak low. So those are our peaks. That would be essentially the measured move. I'm not saying it's going to go to those levels. I'm saying that's where the measured move would fall. So as we start to get down to this trend line, if I see a big strike down to the downside, then I'm saying, okay, then we have a rising wedge breakout occurring. Now it could break out and then come back and test it. This rising wedge is only confirmed when we start to close outside of the bottom trend line. So on a weekly perspective, this is where I'm taking these measurements from. This is where I'm taking my assessment from, in the sense of trend direction. If I start to close underneath this area, where there's just so happens to be a order block and fair value gap that sits in these areas, if we start to take this area for liquidity, move to the downside, yeah, it could be like an oh crap moment. I'm giving you some extreme levels because that's just basically how it measures out. I'm thinking if we were to have an oh crap moment, I'm thinking come back and test this wave 1 level right over here. And my reasoning behind that is, now if I zoom out, these peak levels get tested. At some point they get tested. This wave 1 hasn't been tested, but if we look, right, we went into a wave 5 right over here. Then we started to break down and we tested wave 3, peak of wave 3, right? And then we came back to wave 5, tested, and then came back up, retracement, punched through. But look, we came back and test wave 1. So my thinking is that we test some of the peak levels, right? We wouldn't come back and test. We come back and test 3, which is right over here, right inside these levels, 74K-ish, maybe a little bit lower than here. Yeah, that could very well happen. But I was thinking if we were to have like a moment, I think maybe testing one of these. I don't think the full pattern would play out. I think maybe we test one of those. So that's my exchange. I mean, I'm confident that we're going to be coming and testing these areas. I think the short that's coming in now, that's playing out right now, I think that's positioned right, and I think that's going to take a couple months to develop. It's not going to happen in the span of a week or 2 weeks. I think we have several weeks ahead of ourselves before that completely finishes out altogether. Like I said before, the clues are going to be if I start closing underneath this bottom trend line, then essentially I'm inside of a rising wedge, and then we're going to have a breakdown down to the downside, and then we just start seeking out support areas. I'm on the side of saying that we're going to have a push up to the upside. That's what I'm looking for. There's just more known to the downside. There's data that we've surpassed, we've tested. It's been resistance, it's been support. Like there's to go off of. But in my thesis of us going up higher, there's no data up there. It's just all using really mathematics and a bit of hopium. I'm split down the middle. I am positioned bearish because at the bare minimum, I think that red box gets tested. At least we're inside of an ABC correction. Once we get to those levels, that's when the real decision making needs to come into play. Like, do we take the risk and start longing here, where I think there's going to be a vast majority of people longing inside of this area, and then it pushes out, and then I'm completely screwed? Or do I double my efforts, if you will? Once we get to this area, we have to start having a breakout. Do I add to my short position? Who knows? We don't know what that's going to look like. I'm looking at sometime in March, right? Everything, all the lows are going to come for the year. I think they're going to come inside of Q1, alt and BTC. So when that occurs, we'll cross the spaces together. For right now, I want to give you guys some of my thoughts as to what I'm looking at from a bullish perspective and a bearish perspective, and what the game plan is for us once we get to those levels. These setups are going to take a little bit more time. As I said before, they're going to take a couple months to play out. So just be diligent with them. Let them unfold. And then once we get to our potential targets, we'll reconvene and discuss what our next move is going to be. Other than that, hopefully this information serves you well. I'll catch you guys soon. Peace.